Oh, that sounds terrible.
You just sniffle right into this episode.
He sounds awful.
We're at Studio 3 again. I don't know if you guys can tell.
Studio 3 is actually very comfortable.
It's
we're on
cozy.
comfortable chairs.
It looks nice. We're on comfortable chairs. The setup is great.
That's great.
I'm just allergic to our studio audience.
Well, they're just sleeping. They're good. They're good puppers.
They did scream at me when I walked in, and not in a good way.
They did not like you.
And they made your daughter cry a lot.
She got really spookied by them puppers.
Yeah, she didn't like that too much.
But you know what? They're good dogs. There's nothing else. They're just being protective.
Protective of
their tiny master.
Of Studio 3.
This is their studio.
Yeah. They're the landlords of the studio.
It's the key master.
The key master.
This is the key master. That's Gozer.
What was that?
That's from Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters, yes. Man, we should do a Ghostbusters episode.
Are you the key master?
Oh, gosh.
Yes. I am Gozer.
Rick Moranis.
Oh, so good.
Man. Whatever happened to that guy? Did he die?
No, actually, his wife died, and so he quit acting to take care of his children. You big old jerk. How'd that feel?
I mean, I didn't feel like I was being insensitive.
Yes, if he died, it was his wife. That's why he left Hollywood.
He just kind of disappeared from everything. And
yeah, he quit acting.
He was in the Honey, I Shrunk the Everything movies, and then he was in the Gargoyles.
Yeah, I love Ghostbusters. That was so good.
Those two were. The third one was horrible, but those two were good.
Even if it's like the second one, like with Vigo the Carpathian. If I could get a replica of Vigo the Carpathian in my office, I would put it there.
That was the creepiest.
But my wife would be terrified of that.
Is that the painting?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the creepiest looking painting.
It is I, Vigo the Carpathian.
Nerdy, unqualified, and probably indistinguishable from rambling. Welcome to the A&D Show.
Hello and welcome to the A&D Show. I'm David.
I am Austin.
And we are at the precipice of the apocalypse.
Oh, listen, this could go 4 different ways, because if you were watching the news right now, you'd be convinced it is doomsday, but it's not really doomsday, but we are prepping like it is.
Yes, we are. And here's the thing. Everybody has thought about, what if the world ends tomorrow? What happens if the apocalypse comes? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to discuss, for you, the listener, our plans for the apocalypse.
This is a real uplifting episode, everybody. Just so you know, this is a real, lift up your spirits kind of day where we're talking about the end of the world.
Right. So buckle up and prepare yourself to be depressed.
It's about to get really real. Because we discussed some of these things at church on Sunday. David and I did about what we would and wouldn't do, and I got really dark really quick. So just a heads up on that.
Yeah. So if you are put off by strong opinions about protecting your loved ones at all costs, this episode may not be for you.
I mean, all costs.
All costs. So let's just hang out there for just a second, though, because one of the things that I love about this topic is how universal it is. Everybody has an opinion about the apocalypse. Like, everybody has a plan, right? Whether they have thought about it at depth or at length, like the both of us more than likely have, or not. Everybody thinks about it at some point. Like, what happens if society crumbles?
I think everybody in the back of their mind is always like, what if something happened today? Like, let's say, I mean, I know it's far fetched, but even somewhere like Central Illinois, what if, somehow everywhere, there's some freak accident and
like a volcano,
or like
Utah,
or like an EMP, and shuts off shuts down major grids,
or like the Dome from Stephen King's The Dome.
Yes,
Under the Dome. Excuse me,
Under the Dome. But I think everybody in the back of their mind always kind of ponders, like, it's like that lottery question, like, what would you do if
and everybody's thought about that.
Oh boy, yeah.
Everybody's thought about, you know what I'd do with $250 million from the lottery?
Not going to work tomorrow.
Not going to work tomorrow. But, okay, so the first question I think we have to ask ourselves as doomsday preppers, if you will, is do you prep in advance a bunker, or do you plan to prepare after? And what I mean by that is there's a show, I think it's on Discovery or something, called Doomsday Preppers?
Yes.
Or just Preppers or something like that?
I think it's Doomsday Preppers. Well, Preppers, it's something like that.
Something like that.
It's definitely along those lines.
It's all about these people that are excessive and over the top with preparing for a catastrophe that may or may not ever come, right? And so they build these multi-million-dollar underground bunkers, and they store, hundreds of thousands of dollars in dried food that can last them for several months at a time, up to years at a time. And my question is, do you hold back your finances and try to prepare for that now, or do you risk doing it after it's over? So, your thoughts?
My opinion is when apocalypse comes, no one's prepared. I don't care if you prep, if you have stuff gathered up, it's kind of fair game in my opinion. I'm sorry. If I need something to survive, I'm going to get it.
I mean,
or I'm going to try to get it at least.
Unless they're in like a bunker that you can't get into without dying.
Cloverfield. You know what I'm saying? Like
Fantastic.
Cloverfield Lane.
Cloverfield Lane?
So good. Lane? So good.
So good.
But like I said, most people are going to be not in a bunker. If you're coming through my town that I live in, no one's got bunkers, okay? So it's kind of fend for yourself. So at that point, everything is fair game. If my neighbor has a bunch of canned goods or canned food that I need, I'm going to try to get those canned goods, and part of that's just how it is. I don't know that you can ever prepare for the end of the world.
Right. So this is a side question. This just kind of came up in my mind. This isn't actually part of my original thought process, but if you could have any creature comfort stored away, but you only have one of it, and it was one of those things like it's like your favorite of whatever, fill in the blank, and you have it stored away, and it'll last as long as you can hold off eating it or drinking it or enjoying it or whatever. As long as you don't use it, it'll stay good, and so you'll always have it there to use, but you only get to use it one time. What would it be?
So like one food thing?
One food thing, one like a entertainment of any kind, anything, any creature comfort at all. You can only use it one time, and it's done after the one use.
Honestly, one of those like if I could have like one of those like massage chairs that you sit in,
like at the mall.
No, not like at the mall. Those one's like in one's in like sharper image where it's like it envelops your arms and your feet. Because I can imagine that, but it's something that that's part of the question is that I could say like Slim Jim. I love Slim Jims. Okay,
yeah, same.
I could say Slim Jims. The problem with that is I'd rather not say that because I'd rather have multiple Slim Jims.
Right.
Because I'm selfish.
I think the one creature comfort that I would, if I could choose one, that it's like something I love and I would want it, but that it wouldn't necessarily bother me too much if I never had it, but the one time would be baby dill pickles, the little tiny crunchy ones that are spicy.
I gotcha.
Those are so good.
Those are good.
Hungry.
Yeah, I just feel like I mean, to me, if it was something that'd be nice to have, but I only get it once. I mean, I guess a massage chair, but I mean, I'd rather have that multiple times, so I don't really want to say that.
You're right.
It's kind of hard It's kind of hard to say something that I only get one time.
Okay, so going back to our shelter topic, our shelter question. Who do you shelter with? Now that we've established that the shelter itself, the preparation itself, it's kind of neither here nor there because you're going to do what you have to do to survive, right?
Right.
So, but who do you shelter with? Now, granted, you're married and you have a daughter, and obviously those are your top two.
Correct.
Your first two choices. So let me go ahead and make it easy for you to answer this question and say those are by default
with me.
Who else beyond those two?
So I have a family member who I won't name, and I won't mention what family they're a part of, but I have a member of my family who often says that when the end of the world comes, you all laugh now, but y'all be coming here to eat and get food.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's right that's right where I would go. So if you're listening, you know who you are.
Shout out to you.
And I'll be there soon. But that's the thing is like my parents, they have, freezer full of food, and I would find somewhere to go. I'd still be able to grill for at least a little while.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, I know right where I would go off the bat, because I've got people in my family who can everything, and they've got stockpiles of food and ammunition, and I'm going to just keep myself safe, and I'm going to have all the food.
Yeah.
I hope that this person's got some beef jerky somewhere.
So you're more of like a gatherer than a hunter?
No, I'll hunt if I have to. I can hunt. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, if it comes down to the fact that I have to go out and find food, find shelter, find comfort for my family,
I mean, you'll do what you got to do.
Right.
By any means necessary. Which we'll talk about more in depth later.
We discussed part of the things that I would do whatever it takes to make sure that my family's taken care of, provided for, they have the food, shelter they need.
I think for me, I would shelter with people who I could. I think my biggest priority would be people that I could trust, people that I knew, because I'm not married, I don't have any kids, so I don't have to worry much about putting myself in a precarious situation where somebody could potentially hurt me by hurting somebody I care about. Though I would definitely choose to be with my brother or my mother or my father if I could.
Right.
But because of our proximity to each other at this point in our lives anyway, that's probably not a possibility. So I think my preference would be to shelter with people who I knew I could trust, people who we could work together for the common good.
Right. Not people that you're afraid. You might wake up one morning and they take all the food with them and they're gone.
Right. So basically nobody that I just met or that I work with. Besides, nobody that I work with.
Hello.
Just kidding.
We work in the same company.
We do work in the same company. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right. No, I got you on that. There are people that I would and wouldn't trust.
Yeah.
There are people in my family that I wouldn't want to shelter with. Sorry. Not everybody in my family is going to get into this bunker.
Right.
But I think that the biggest thing when you're facing the inevitable, and when fallout comes, I think that you're looking at situations where you have to be very diligent on who you are associating with.
Yeah. Because
that's the key to your survival.
Right.
Is being with the right people. If you're with the wrong people, you're done so.
Right. And I think it matters too, you can't make your decision on who you shelter with and who you associate with in the apocalypse based on what they bring you. Does it make sense? It can't be like a goods and services kind of decision. It's got to be based on trust. Because, for example, I won't name any names. Nobody listening to this, except maybe my mother, would know who I was talking about anyway. But I won't, just for anonymity's sake, I won't name any names. But I have a family member who is steeped in weaponry and the use of it legally, I will say. And they're somebody that I would be able to trust to have all kinds of knowledge about the apocalypse, to be able to know how to survive and how to protect yourself and so on. But they're not somebody that I would trust with my life. They're not somebody.
I understand that.
It's like somebody that I know that if I chose to associate with them in the apocalypse, I know that I would, because of association with them,
right.
I'd be well off because of the skills that they could teach, or the weaponry that they would have at their disposal that I could take advantage of as well. But there'd be somebody that I'm like, at the whatever opportunity was able to present itself, I'm like disposable to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
I
so
agree.
I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm surrounded by people that I'm disposable to them. I want to be indisposable so that within my circle of post-apocalyptic friends, I don't feel threatened for my life. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And, you know, I think one of the things where you have to, like you said, I mean, even those that you trust.
Yeah.
Okay. When push comes to shove, like listen, like
yeah, you're right. You're right.
You know, I love my family dearly, but if I had to do terrible things to protect my wife and child, you know,
yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do for you and
part
yours,
of
right?
how it goes.
So here's stemming from that a little bit, and I guess from both of our previous questions. Hold on. Man, I'm dying. I'll cut that out. You know what's crazy? As I'm having this allergic reaction to your dogs, but it's like as soon as I get in my car and I drive home, 10 minutes out of this parking lot, and I'm fine.
I know. Yeah.
Anyway, so stemming from our last couple of questions, just kind of furthering that thought, what is your ideal shelter for the apocalypse? Are we talking just whatever, you know, shamble of a shack that you can find that's defensible? Or are you talking like, I'm going to invest my time and energy in money or whatever goods I've got into building like some super tight underground bunker that has creature comforts and everything?
Right. I want to go underground.
Yeah.
Because number one, I hate the summer heat. I hate summer.
You know, that's right. Come on. Put yourself in a cave.
I want to go underground. And you know, not only for that, but also protection in the winter too. You know, so you got to factor in if you're underground, you can heat and cool
because of the insulation from the dirt.
Right. Yeah. So I think for me, I start underground. I don't need windows. You know, give me a hatch that I can look out and make sure that the world's, you know, see if the world is on fire still. Be done. But you know, I'm going underground. You know,
yeah.
I don't need. You know, I don't want to be above ground. I don't need a moat. I don't want. You know, now I will have, you know, certain protections around the you know, the surface level around the bunker. You know, it's very, very strong locks, etc. But I, you know, the first thing that I would do is I would go underground. I would try to find somewhere that I could be underground, whether it's even, you know, something as simple as a basement, somewhere that I can be underground. And
then obviously you would, you know, find some ways to make it defensible.
Right, of course.
I think I saw on that Doomsday Preppers show, these people had built this underground bunker out of, I think it was like shipping containers. Or maybe it was like...
I think you're right, but yeah. I think, I vaguely remember that one.
When what they did was they had one way in, or 2 ways in and 2 ways out. So it was like an entrance and an exit on one end, an entrance and exit on the other end, but their entrance, one of them was super hidden and the other one was like kind of a more public entrance.
Right.
But the public entrance was guarded by, they had cameras, they had flamethrowers built into the entrance so that if somebody got into the entrance pathway, they could literally burn them alive.
Well, that's what I would do.
They
I would
had
have
a secret hidden like swinging spike gate.
You'd be all set up just like that.
Yeah, like that seems pretty dope to me. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be investing my time and energy into creating a space for me and friends or loved ones or whatever to dwell in the apocalypse, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make that place secure.
I totally agree. I'm going to make sure that I have everything figured out beforehand.
Now, that doesn't necessarily put me in the mindset of spending my life pre-apocalypse preparing exclusively for post-apocalypse. But in the event that it does happen, that's probably my first, you know, whenever you're in a survival situation, your first thing is shelter, right?
Correct.
So that's definitely my go-to is gather together the people that are my indispensable closest people that I can't imagine myself living through the apocalypse without. Right?
I agree with that.
Put ourselves in a place where we can together build a secure place, a secure bunker of some sort underground, a place where we don't have to be quiet unless in case there's some kind of an alien that invades Earth and they hear your noise and they kill you, like in The Quiet Place.
Which is worst case scenario. Is that if you've got the aliens coming in, then you're really going to have a bad day.
Oh, yeah. Or, Cloverfield where they're shooting all kinds of weird, like, dissolve your face kinds of gas everywhere.
I really genuinely loved 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like, I loved Cloverfield.
It was fantastic. It was great. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about weaponry for a second. I want to say this. We talked about, sheltering. We talked about who we would bunk with. And I did mention that you can't base your decision on who you bunk with and where you bunk in the apocalypse based exclusively on the the checks and balances. Like, do they provide you something that's worth you bunking with them, kind of thing. You can't exactly do that exclusively, but that is a valuable part of it.
Correct.
And if you find somebody that you can use and yet be valuable with, it's a good thing to have. So that in mind, I wanted to say all that to say this. You can't base exclusively on what they bring to you, but you can a little bit. Now, let me say it this way. I have a friend. I won't name any names for anonymity's sake, but I have a friend who I spent some time with on a spring break weekend or a spring break week a few years ago. And we went to her family's house, and it was awesome. We had a great time. But her grandfather is like some kind of gun-toting fool or something, because dude's got guns upon guns upon guns just coming out his ears. He's got a whole garage that didn't keep cars in because he can't fit them for all the guns he's got in there. And I'm thinking to myself, like literally, I was thinking to myself, apocalypse comes, I'm coming to this dude's house because all these guns, he's got ammunition coming out his ears. Like, I'm just like, this guy is prepared for the end of the world. And I want to put myself around that kind of thing. So I say that to ask this: what kind of weapons do you seek out? Do you seek out weapons? Do you create a weapon-free defense system that's basically traps and booby traps and triggers that protect you, or do you go proactive on the offensive, develop weapons, get weapons, whatever you have to do, and go out?
Right. I would be a bit like a bit like old tribes where I just put the heads of invaders on stakes in front of my house just as a warning to other people.
Heads on pikes, like
just when I said that, I was like,
that's
come on and see what happens. I honestly, I'm not interested in any kind of like no kill traps. Like if you're coming to possibly attack my family, I'm going to defend myself with lethal measures.
Right.
And I would do a lot of handguns, a lot of rifles, shotguns. There's a lot of guns, a whole lot of guns. I'm not getting swords, lightsabers if they're invented at the time. Yeah, I'll get some lightsabers. But I mean, honestly, it's going to be just a lot of guns, lot of guns,
lots and lots of guns.
Yeah.
For all of our gun enthusiasts that listen to the show, which there are probably not very many, maybe a few. Surely you would invest your time and energy into learning how to make your own ammunition, right?
Yeah, well, I know how to.
Would you go like total Laura Croft and get a bow and arrow?
No, bow and arrow. Yeah, I would, like I said, on family members. I have family members that literally stockpile ammunition, and they get mad that there are restrictions for some types of ammunition that you can buy. You can only buy so many at one time,
right?
And they have an issue with that because they stockpile. Now the problem is that some people view people that stockpile ammunition as you crazy, and they're just they're.
I guess it depends on whether you're actually crazy.
Out of balance, right? When they're not, they're good people.
I mean, I know some people that are crazy that probably stockpile ammunition, but they are actually crazy,
right? But not like the bad kind of crazy. Like, I'm going to go shoot up. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So that's a problem. But the issue is that I think that I would just be yes, I would definitely invest the time and money and effort and knowledge base into proper ammo making, but I would also hope that by then I've got enough stockpile to Have, because the thing is, you're not going to be using. This isn't World War III. I mean, yeah, you'll need to use some, but you're not constantly shooting.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go on some rampage.
You drop a few bodies in front of your house, people are going to get the hint.
Especially if you go all Mordecai and you impale them on a spike and just dangle their lifeless body.
See,
NSFW, please, if you...
It saves effort. It saves effort. Not only does it let other people know not to mess with me, but also conserves ammunition. So
right, I mean, it's duplicitous. It's in a good way.
Yeah.
So now that we've established, who you bunk with, where you bunk, how you protect yourself, what is your first move to secure your future in the apocalypse? Let me say it this way: when the sirens go off and the proverbial poop hits the proverbial fan, what is your first thing? You see it on the news, and it's like, the end has come, the apocalypse is... Our studio audience got a little crazy there for a second. Let me just back up for a second.
That was my wife crashing through the baby gate.
So, over here at Studio 3, things get a little wild.
It's crazy here. 7 p.m. bedtime.
No, what is your first move? In this proverbial game of chess. That's
I think I think it depends. How close is apocalypse? Number one, is it worldwide apocalypse? Or number two, is apocalypse spreading from one place to the other? Number one, I think you go rural. I think that you find somewhere secluded and by yourself. I think that you avoid major areas, avoid people at all costs when possible.
Let me pause you for a second. Let me just drop this hypothetical in there. Have you seen the new Netflix original that released a few days ago, How It Ends?
I've seen the trailer for it. It looks phenomenal.
It was actually
and I'm
interesting.
Looking forward to seeing it.
It was a very narrow view of one or two people's experience in that apocalyptic turn, when things turn for the worst, and there's no information about what's happening.
Doesn't that have Michael Pena in it?
No.
What am I thinking of?
That's a different one that's not out yet. Same idea, but a different movie. That one is about
aliens. That
one's about
aliens. I think
he's having dreams about the apocalypse coming.
And it comes.
This one is about the apocalypse happens, whatever the extinction level event is, it happens, and he's trying to get to his fiance or whatever. But anyway, so say that it's literally like some natural disaster that happens that threatens the existence of humanity. Your first step, what is that?
I honestly think I think the first thing you do is I think you just you can say I'm gonna go here or there. You've got to take inventory. The first thing you got to do is, what do I have? Do I have enough food? Do I have water? Do I have I've got a baby. Do I have diapers? And do you have the necessary things you need to survive?
Right.
And I think it's the first thing you got to do is take inventory. And if apocalypse is starting, you go to the store and get what you can. You loot it, and and I don't condone violence, whatever. But in the world, kind of looting, you can do whatever you want to. You can loot all the things for all I care.
When the poop hits the fan, it's just kind of like all bets are off at that point.
Right, correct.
You just got to do what you got to do. I think my first step would be alerting my crew. We've already talked about the people that we would bunk with, the people that we would immediately reach out to and associate ourselves with post-apocalypse, right? My first step is to connect with them. Okay, right. Apocalypse has happened. We get together, and of course, in your situation, you're already with those people, right? You're already with your wife and your child, and most of the people that you would associate with post-apocalypse are already around you. In my scenario, there's not as many of them immediately around me. So I would end up being in a situation similar to that film, How It Ends, whereas I would be traveling to people, or they would be traveling to me. And, in that situation, all long-distance communication is completely terminated.
Right, I agree.
So you just kind of have to figure that out, right? So I think that would be my first thing, would just be we would have a predetermined location that we would meet at. We would stay there for a predetermined amount of time so that we would say, we know this is how long we have to get there. This is how long we have to wait. And if they don't show or we don't make it there by this time, then we're on our own.
Right.
Right. And then once you have determined those details and then the event actually takes place, that would be my first step. Getting together with the people that I know that I'm going to be spending the rest of that time with, so that I'm not alone.
Right.
You know, that's probably my highest priority in the apocalypse, is to just know that I'm not riding solo, because, you know, the adage, there's safety in numbers, never has more weight than in an apocalyptic scenario.
Exactly. And you know, and I hate The Walking Dead. All right, I think it's a garbage show, but they had that right. You have to, you may not want numbers with everything, but there is some benefit to having I guess, quote unquote, a team of people that you can rely on to help kind of like save the day. You know what I mean? Like, that's important.
Right. Well, and the raw fact of it is, you can only see in front of you.
Right.
But if you have somebody with you, you've got another viewpoint.
Right.
And you can have somebody watching your back and you can be watching theirs.
Correct.
So the safety in numbers thing is as much a survival tool as any weapon you would carry.
Right.
You know? So I think that would probably be my first step, would just be assembling together with the people that I know that I'm going to be spending that time with, so that I know that I've got people looking out for me, and and I'm looking out for them, and we can then go and move on to steps 2, 3, 4, 5, and however to make it through the rest of however long this term lasts. Which brings us to our last question, which is, how long do you think, or do we individually think, that we would last in the apocalypse?
I mean, you want to say forever, right? Like, you want to say that you'd be fine.
Let's do a best case and a worst case.
So,
best case scenario, obviously, you would last as long as you would need to last.
I think worst case is I would get a little bit overzealous.
What do you mean?
I think that I would get too confident about my abilities way too early. So
I would just go around like Napoleon, trying to take
robbing
all
the neighbors. I'm taking everything away. No, I mean, honestly, I think that I would be a good mix of cautious and also bold and brave when I have to be, just purely for family survival's sake.
Right.
But I would do whatever it took to make sure that my family survived, even if that meant sacrificing myself if I had to.
Yeah. Pull John Krasinski, and spoilers. I just ruined it.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it yet.
You've seen it, right?
Oh, listen, man. It was gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
It was gut-wrenching.
We haven't named it, though, so we won't.
But, yeah. Oh, gosh. Now I'm heartbroken again.
By the time this comes out, surely people have seen it that want to.
Yeah.
We're recording this in July, but it's not going to air until late August. Yeah. So,
I would like to think that, I could do okay.
Yeah.
But
worst case scenario, everything works against you. How long do you think you'll last?
I'm outdoorsy-ish, but not that outdoorsy. Like, I wear pink pants sometimes. I got a pair of pink pants.
Yeah, you do. You wore them a couple weeks ago.
I have no problem. I'm good with my hands. I have no problem getting my hands dirty. But I don't know how to like dress an animal that I kill for meat. So I think worst case. A few years. I think worst case, at very worst case, a few years.
Yeah.
I think that could easily survive a couple of years. I think.
Well, I guess it would really depend on the conditions of the environment.
Right.
Like when you do get to see how it ends, if you decide to watch it, that's a worst case scenario.
Right.
Because EMP or something has taken out all communications, right? So you don't know even what's happening. You don't know what's happening in the environment. All you know is that everything has just gone all to mess.
Something is broke.
Right. And you find out later in the film, just by the limited perspective view, which is a really neat way that they brought the story about, because it's a limited perspective. You only know what the main characters know, which is almost nothing. Right. And so, but you find out kind of as they find things out, you find things out like the fact that there was some kind of natural disaster that happened and you don't know what it is, but you know that periodically it just blows up and kills not only people, but huge chunks of the planet burn up and you don't know why. And so things like that, in a worst case scenario like that, a couple days for me.
Yeah.
Best case scenario for me, if I'm able to surround myself, I'll break it down into two ways. Best case scenario. Best case scenario, if I'm by myself, if I somehow don't make it to my people or they don't survive,
hang out with us,
I would end up on my own. If I ended up on my own, best case scenario, I think realistically, probably a couple of years at most.
right?
More realistically, probably a year at most, because I don't know how much I could handle by myself.
I get really bored really quick, I'll be honest.
Same. And get real lonely real fast, and then you just get real reckless when you get real lonely. Best case scenario, if I connect with the people and I have the support group around me that I need to survive, I would imagine a decade or more. And I would imagine that within that time period, you would end up in a situation like, did you ever see that show Jericho back in the day?
Pieces of it. It was good. It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Underrated.
Very underrated, but very interesting storyline. But the idea is that they have it's a similar situation to what we're talking about, right? Some kind of disaster, some kind of event takes place, and it basically displaces this town, and they have to create their own form of government to manage their own people.
Right.
And that would be kind of where I would see real long-term success, real longevity in a post-apocalyptic scenario would come from a group of people assembling together to create their own society with their own rules and their own government. I mean, you can live as a household, as a family, but eventually you're going to grow. You're going to have this kind of Abrahamic type experience where your family propagates and grows if you don't have any external forces containing that, right? So you might as well figure out a way to reestablish civilization on whatever scale you can make that happen. I would think would be the best way to survive on a long-term scale.
I think for me, it all honestly just comes down to, do you have, like you said, can you get to your people? We all have a mental note, hopefully, of what we would do. Can you get to your people and get where you need to get to ensure your survival? And that's the biggest question.
Right. And, again, best case scenario, that happens. I think that multiple groups of people like that come together. At least in my hope, multiple groups of people like that come together, and we are able to work out our differences and create some kind of post-apocalyptic civilization, and we grow beyond and reestablish, human life as the dominant, intelligent, sentient species of the planet.
Right, I agree.
Unless, of course, dinosaurs take over, which is what's likely to happen in Jurassic World 3, which I'm super excited about, which, listeners, tune in September. We have a very special thing happening for you guys in September, having to do with Jurassic Park. So take a wild gander at that in your own time, and be with us throughout our episodes next month. You won't want to miss those. But wow, enlightening thoughts on the apocalypse. We told you it was going to get a little dark at the onset of this episode, so we hope we didn't depress any of you into a dark.
I told
stupor.
you earlier I would do whatever it took to survive.
Right, but I think we're coming to a close. Before we do, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. KS Marketing has been a sponsor of this show for a number of months at this point. And I tell you what, Austin, I don't think that we could I don't think that we could do this show at the quality that we are able to do it without KS Marketing.
Oh, I totally agree.
Kenneth.
The set that they got for us is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, thank Kenneth and KS Marketing for all their contributions to this show, because without them, we would still be sitting in my kitchen talking around a mic and it would still sound like trash. But because of them, we have this high definition recording set up, and it's just great. We're able to take it on the road, and we're able to meet together and record at multiple locations, Studio 3 included. So we're super excited about that.
You love Studio 3.
So thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Studio 3. And thank you, all of our sponsors, for everything you guys do to make this show a possibility. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Now back to the podcast.
That was the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
Oh. Well,
I thought it was phenomenal, though.
it was great. It was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to have to go home and sleep on all this, and I'm going to be dreaming about the apocalypse tonight.
I will say that for our listeners, for their sake, I didn't go as dark as I could have.
No, you didn't.
Because I went a whole lot darker on Sunday at church.
Talking with people at church on Sunday, and he's talking about murdering everybody.
I was just being honest. Like, listen, guys, like, this is, if it comes down to it,
yeah,
maybe the bearer of bad news, but I'm gonna off you.
We're not gonna go there, though.
Put you on the stake out front of my house to ward off any other peasants.
We're gonna have to censor that content, because our podcast would probably get pulled if we actually went full bore.
Yeah, I'm not going to actually kill people. Probably.
Yeah, this is not gonna happen. This is not a show hosted by a couple of psychos.
Dun dun dun.
So thanks for being with us today through this deep dive into the apocalypse and all things prep for that. And thanks for being a faithful listener. We wouldn't be here if you weren't listening.
Well, it's true. If they weren't listening, it would just be two people rambling
in a room.
Which is really what it is.
It's super meta that we're talking about two people in a room talking, and that's all that our show is, and that's really what we're doing right now.
But, I mean, I enjoy it.
I enjoy it. I love the outlet. I love the fact that my parents are listeners, and they can hear all the things that I think about. And
yeah, my dad doesn't know what a podcast is. When the other day, I was telling my dad, we were talking. I was talking about whenever I'm on the radio, doing my interview for sports stuff. I was waiting, I was calling in, and they're recording it, and then they play it on the radio on the drive home sports show. And he goes, "Well, why don't you just call it whenever it's live?" I said, "Dad, I can't. I have a job. Number one, number two, they don't do live radio shows anymore." And so then I was explaining what a podcast is. He was so. Is it on the radio? Well, no, Dad.
No, it's on the internet.
So it's like a show. He knows what YouTube is, though. So I gave him that. He asked if we were on YouTube, but I said, "Well, not yet.
Not yet. We'll get there." Speaking of the socials, if you haven't already, find us on the Instagram at ad.showofficial, and find us on Facebook at the A&D Show, the A&D Show, excuse me, and send us some comments. Comment on our pinned post on Facebook, and comment on our latest post on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, and we are definitely working toward. Drum roll, please. That's horrible. We are definitely working toward a listener-generated episode, and we want to hear your thoughts. So, check our posts out on Facebook and on Instagram. Give us some feedback, and you might be featured. Your thoughts and your topics may be featured in a future episode. So, give us a shout out, and we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on the Facebook, the Instagram, and if you use the hashtag the AD Show, and we will find your comments, and we will possibly read them and
think about
deliberate. So
we'll discuss you behind your back.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
On recording. So you can hear about it and not be able to comment
normal.
back.
Totally normal. We're going to talk about you behind your back without you.
Yeah.
Be fun.
Whatever. It's what we do.
Fun for everybody.
Fun for us.
I enjoy it.
We don't have to hear anybody's comments about it until they comment on it later.
This is a very wise thing.
Wisdom is what we do.